is Robin Dixon, and today I will be discussing the central problem that was raised in an article titled, "Does a Psychopath Who Kills Get to Use the Insanity Defense?" This article was published on the NPR website, and it highlights the case of Jared Murray, whose killing of another college student led Oklahoma lawmakers to reconsider whether individuals diagnosed with psychopathy or antisocial personality disorder should qualify for the insanity defense. So now we're going to talk about it. The central problem that was addressed in this article concerns the tensions between legal definitions of insanity and the psychiatric understanding of personality disorders, particularly psychopathy or antisocial personality disorder. These two disorders have shown to have neurological brain abnormalities when brain scans are compared to individuals without the disorder. But the dilemma emerges because the insanity defense traditionally applied to individuals whose mental illness results in reality testing, thus preventing them from understanding whether their actions are truly right or wrong. And psychopathy, despite the brain abnormalities, is not typically riddled with such impairments. So let's define psychopathy. There are three elements that one must possess to be considered a psychopath: malignant narcissism, antisocial or histrionic personality disorder, and an ability to form meaningful interpersonal relationships. So in other words, a person with antisocial personality disorder may not have or be a psychopath. However, a psychopath will have antisocial and or histrionic personality disorders. Moreover, these disorders are characterized by traits such as lack of empathy, manipulativeness, and absence of remorse, thus creating a legal and moral question. If someone understands right from wrong, but lacks emotional concern for others, should they be legally excused? From a public safety standpoint, the concern is clear. Psychopathy is often associated with persistent patterns of antisocial personality disorder, reduced responsiveness to treatment, and a higher risk for recidivism. In the Murray case, prosecutors were alarmed when a psychologist suggested he might no longer possess a danger only weeks after being hospitalized. This highlighted the tension between clinical stabilization and long-term risk management. Public safety systems rely on predictable standards of accountability, and many states therefore exclude antisocial personality disorder from insanity statutes to avoid misuse of such defense. There's also a structural issue here. The law is seeking a binary decision, either sane or insane, while psychiatrists often deal with a continuum of functioning. As legal scholars have quoted in the article, explain that psychiatry focuses on explanation and treatment. Law focuses on blame and responsibility. Thus, there is a mismatch in the creation of these policies where the instability in high-profile cases begin to challenge public's perception of justice. However, there is a compassionate side to my stance, and it's one that should be considered. Personality pathology often develops in the context of severe childhood trauma, environmental adversity, or neurodevelopmental differences. Even if psychopathy does not eliminate moral awareness, which it does, but if it does not, it may represent an enduring maladaptive developmental trajectory rather than pure moral evil. Compassion in this context is not necessarily being offered as an excuse. Instead, it supports humane treatment, structured rehabilitation, if one is found to assist that individual, and scientifically informed risk management. So that way, when they are in trial and are up for parole, the legal system has a better understanding of who they would be letting back into their community. It has been argued that the rigid exclusion of personality disorder risks oversimplifying human behavior and ignoring individual differences in impulse control, emotional processing, or neurological development. Let's look at the example of Richard Kuklinski, who is often called the Iceman. Kuklinski reportedly demonstrated traits commonly associated with psychopathy: emotional detachment, manipulation, and calculated violence. He understood the social rules, and he concealed his crimes for years, suggesting intact knowledge of his wrongfulness. Although his history did involve extreme childhood abuse, his behavior was organized and goal-directed, and was not driven by a state of psychosis and/or delusions. Cases like this illustrate why many legal systems hesitate to view psychopathy as insanity. The individual may be choosing action strategically rather than as a result of an impaired reality testing. Hence my position: psychopathy and psychosis are not the same, and therefore psychopathy alone should generally not qualify for an insanity defense. The insanity defense exists to protect individuals whose severe mental illness prevents comprehension of reality or morality, such as psychotic disorders, where hallucinations or delusions override rational judgment. Psychopathy, by contrast, typically involves understanding consequences, but lacking emotional inhibition and/or empathy. In my view, the law is justified holding such offenders accountable because accountability supports deterrence, public safety, and consistency in justice. My position is not anti-compassion. Compassion can coexist with responsibility. Sentencing decisions may consider developmental history, trauma, or neurological risk factors without erasing legal culpability. The key distinction is between explanation and excuse. Neuroscience and psychology can explain behavior without excusing it. So society must balance fairness to offenders with protection of potential victims. My position is that psychopathy should not serve as a pathway to insanity acquittal, because it does not fundamentally disrupt an individual's ability to know right from wrong. But it should still be used to inform how we manage risk, treatment, and rehabilitation within the justice system. Thank you.